that people are people and people make mistakes, but everybody deserves a chance. Everybody deserves to be looked at how I would want people to look at me and get to know me.
So what have people said to you when you tell them that you work at a sex offender program?
So, let's start with work. So I'm working for the ECF. I remember I told my supervisor, oh, I got this internship with sex offenders. She was like, why would you want to do that? She started looking up, like, I was like, but they have the lowest recidivism rate. I told her, like, all the facts. She started looking it up. She was like, this is not right. Why would you do that? It was not something that was just regularly just accepted. People are just, but I would say at the time, I would say that a lot of people, not a lot, but some people were open. I think people who knew me, like my friends, my family, people who understood who I am as a person, they were more likely to listen to what I had to say, and they kept an open mind about it. Versus people who were just like that I work with, or just random people.
Yeah.
Just because they're just more like, why would you do that? Or like,
I kind of like, sometimes like I would love to explain to people like why I work for a sex offender program, because it's kind of like you're taking on a advocacy approach. But sometimes, I'm not gonna lie, like because of how much explaining and like the debate that would come into afterwards, I would just be like, oh, I have an internship and like
I don't even know. I would be like, a lot of times I would do the whole, they're like, oh, what do you do intern with? Oh, oops.
You're gonna have to take that out. So
I like plastic anyways. Oops. Okay, so when I would tell people that I'm interning with sex offenders, it was more, if I felt like they might give me some type of I would just be like, I intern with sex offenders, and I would just leave it at that. Shrug my shoulders, walk away. And not really try to have, like, any conversation about it.
Yeah. Like, sometimes when I liked it, though, because I could be an advocate for these people, and I could explain to them, like, which we'll get into later, like, the harsh reality that these people have to face, that it is literally not even legal or ethical how they continue to charge sex offenders for their charge after they've done something like 10 years of prison, 15 years of prison, 20 years of prison, and they come out of prison and they still...
The sad thing is, I don't even think they would treat dogs like that.
Yeah.
You find a stray dog on the street, you usually pick them up and bring them to the Humane Society or something.
But a lot of people feel bad for stray dogs because they didn't do anything to like someone or somebody. So I could see it, but I'm just saying, like...
But we don't know everybody's story.
Exactly. The point. Like, some people who are labeled sex offenders, you could be labeled sex offender for going to Mardi Gras and flashing your boobs. A lot of girls think that's fun and cool to do.
You remember, like, I remember when we were on road trips with my, like, family, and you're on that long stretch where you don't see a rest stop in sight. I'm pretty sure everybody at one point, or most people, know someone who have pulled over to the side of the road and went to the bathroom.
Yep. And you could be a sex offender.
You could be a sex offender for that.
You could get pulled over by the cops.
Yeah.
So what we're trying to say is that the range for being called a sex offender is so broad that it's a very small percentage of people who have actually raped a woman or a man or a child. Like, the percentage is very small. And then, like what you were talking about earlier, like the recidivism rate for people who have molested a child or raped someone, they are not high, and it is not the rate is not high that they're going to reoffend.
Yeah. It's crazy though, if you think about it too, like, because we were talking about, like, the different things, how people could be labeled. Like, probably not, but, like, even people who are in relationships and they're, like, drive-in movies. Think about like those old, those movies where you see like the old school drive-in movies where people like go to the cliff and they do that whole makeout like in the movies where they do the makeout session on the cliff in their car
and
then you see you have sex and you see the car moving. Even that, like,
you could be called. You could
exactly like
be called a sex offender.
And the funny thing is there was a commercial. There was a commercial for, I forgot what car company, and it was this couple and they had like a regular. Let's just pick a random brand. They had the car version. And then they're on the cliff and they're getting a jiggy. They're getting jiggy. And next thing you know, she's pregnant. Now then they up to the full, like a SUV, like a crossover kind of car. They got jiggy. They had it. But the thing is, throughout the commercial, it was pretty much trying to show that this car line had all different types to fit a family. But in order to show that, they showed them getting jiggy, having sex in a car. But people don't realize if a police came and pulled you over,
you get in trouble.
You can get in trouble for that.
And I think like what I heard from a lot of men who were and women who were a part of the program that we worked with, they didn't know the consequences. How high, because a lot of the people that we worked with came from lower SCS communities, and they felt like sometimes if they didn't admit to a crime that they would get a higher sentencing. So they didn't have the knowledge of, like, let's say you're 18 or 19 and you're dating someone who is 15, 16, 17. That's against, like, you could become a sex offender for that. So,
and if you don't have, like, that kind of situation, if you don't have an attorney that's vouching for you or trying to help you, even if it was a consensual relationship, even though it could fall under Romeo and Juliet, all of those things, if you don't have someone fighting for you, you're going to accept whatever they're offering. And think about how much attorneys cost nowadays.
Yeah, exactly. And most people can't afford them. Like, it's hard for someone in the middle class. Imagine someone who's in the lower class. Yeah. So what are some other misconceptions or things that you think people just don't know about sex offenders or probation or, like, the whole thing in general?
That they're like old creepy guys that are in their house peeking out the window like, where are you? Like,
most sex offenders are family related.
Family related, yes. As well as it's like the fact that the age is ranged from young to old. Women, men.
Yep.
I feel like there was literally white, black, Hispanic,
female, male,
all
gay,
gay, straight, like
gay, straight, everything.
It was all there, all there. So, like, I think that's the biggest misconception. I think just like what else?
I think that most people don't know that sex offenders are like they don't really have a home. Like, a lot of them are forced due to probation to live on the streets. And that's not safe for them because what is that doing? I live on the street, I need to survive. So what are they going to do? They're going to try to commit another crime that could get them back in prison. Or, let's say they do have, a serious issue. You're just leaving them to what everything is at their hands. They're bored, there's nothing to do. Do you know how hard it is for a sex offender to get a job? And now they're putting it on their licenses. Literally, you could see sex offender on their license. And
that's not something I feel like everybody shouldn't like. I shouldn't be able to give you my driver's license to be able to purchase something when they, like, if it's debit or credit, you know what I mean? Like, people shouldn't have to see that.
Yeah,
because people automatically judge.
Exactly, because people are judging, and not only are they judging, people can be really cruel.
And honestly, they're just trying to move on with their lives.
Exactly.
They've served the time, and a lot of them have families that they're looking out for. It's just...
And I want to go back to, like, what you were saying, like, they served their time. So it's like when they get out of prison, it's almost like, or jail, it's almost like the system is trying to get them back into prison and jail. Yeah. Because we all know that prison and jail is a money-making machine.
But who's paying for it? The same people that are treating them like crap. Maybe they will look at it differently.
and like more rehabilitation centers for when they do have a serious issue. You know, because we have encountered a lot who do have an issue that needs to be dealt with.
Definitely.
But I think therapist is also something that's needed, because as a therapist, you know, let me ask you this. You being a master's in family therapy student, how do you think that's helped you work with such diverse populations?
It's helped me. One of the biggest things is, what is it? Context. Everything makes sense in context. I think that was learning that regardless of if my context and my story, this doesn't make sense, taking myself out and putting myself in this person's shoes and understanding their context, you can start to understand how things might have happened. Not saying it's okay, but understand how it could have happened.
And you understand, and that enables you to help them. Because if you don't have any understanding, and like how you were before, just using it as an example, if you can't understand what happened to this child, how can you begin to help this child who has to deal with this pain, but yet they still want to contact their parents because this is their parent and they still love them. But you need to, as a therapist, we can help sex offenders, and I feel like we can help victims and survivors of these cases, because we have worked with sex offenders.
I completely agree. So I think it's helped definitely in terms of how I work my cases, especially my sexual abuse cases, just because, unfortunately, because of the stigma behind sex offenders, normally it's an automatic termination of parental rights. But I have been able to take a step back and say, okay, wait, let's look at the case.
That's beautiful. And I also think, I have something else to say. I also think that, like, empathy is important. I think empathy, for me, working in this program has showed me how empathetic of a person I am, and most people don't have empathy, and empathy cannot be taught. They try to teach it to you in school, but empathy cannot be taught.
I think most people can be sympathetic. Oh, I feel so bad. And then move on with their life.
Yeah.
A lot of people, if you don't have sympathy, then I'm sorry.
You're a psycho.
I don't want to say that. Pretty much.
You're psychotic.
You are. But empathy is hard to have.
It is.
You have to be, I don't know. I would say I'm very empathetic. I know you are too.
Yeah.
So I think being able, or having empathy and being able to you're able to work with everybody and really look at the situation, because regardless, nobody deserves to be treated the way they're treated, honestly. Murderers aren't even treated that bad.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, people get out on murder.
And like we said, most people who commit these crimes don't do it again, because they learn, oh shit, like this is a big deal, or they're in great treatment programs like the one that we worked at that actually help, and we help these people get through what they're going through as far as probation and deal with their, sexual addictions.
I was shocked, honestly, to see how many as well, because you're talking about misconceptions, where it wasn't like a young victim. Where there was a good amount where their victim was that teenage age. So that was interesting for me as well.
Yeah, I think being a sex offender is like very looked at as like how leprosy was like back in the day. Like that's how they get treated. So like all I ask is that like that you've watched this interview with like an open mind, and we're not telling you to go out here and like you have to accept this and you have to accept that, but I think it's just important to approach all things in life with like an open mind, and like if it's impossible for you to like put yourself in these people's shoes, which I completely understand that, if you just could show a little bit more sympathy and like do your own research and look into these topics, because everything is not black and white. What you see on the news media is not always what's reality. And most of the times it's not reality. So
I think also to like piggyback off what you said was just because you are sympathetic, just because you decide to help, doesn't mean you condone the action.
Exactly. That's big.
And I think a lot of people don't realize that. Do I condone what these guys did? Absolutely not. But they've served their time.
Mm-hmm.
They deserve to move on with their life. They deserve what everybody else deserves, just a life.
Mm-hmm. They do.
And if we can help them with that life and getting it back, then I think we should.
Yeah, because what does that do? Like, one thing that people say is like, oh, we should kill sex offenders, right? That's the biggest thing I hear.
Yeah.
Okay, well, what are you going to do? Kill every single sex offender that's ever born? Do you know this is, like, something that people are dealing with? New people are being born every day. So what do you do to really stop the problem?
I'm just saying. Our professor used to say something. There's those who, what does he say? He used to say there's those who have committed the act and those who just haven't done it yet.
Mm-hmm.
Last time I checked, a lot of times I'm in the mall and I see grown men looking at teenage girls or preteens or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Especially now, like, not saying it's okay, but
yeah.
So maybe we should, is that okay? But yet they're quick to be the ones to point their fingers.
Mm-hmm. I think what the most important thing is that we need to have a conversation about this. And I think that's what we're doing here, opening up dialogue for people to think differently and view differently. And I think once you stop saying this is taboo, we don't talk about this, put it underneath the rug or push these people out of our society, what are you running from? Because these people are going to be here whether you like it or not. So either we help them or you are not doing anything for anybody.
I agree. But yet it's okay for the rich.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just saying, look at media nowadays.
Yeah.
Every other week you hear about some person in the media, but yet they're not getting the labels.
Mm-hmm. And what do you think about, like, the Me Too movement? Because it kind of annoys me when, specifically, I hear it from men, are like, oh, women are... this is just a lie, they're just doing it for money, they're just doing it, even though this could be true, but that, I feel like that minimizes, and it makes it seem like, oh, shush, woman, go in the corner, you just want money, like, you're just doing this for publicity. Mm-hmm. Oh, you would have never said anything if no one ever said anything. Like, what are your views about the Me Too movement?
I agree. I think with unfortunately, because of how, oh, you just want money, all of those things, like you mentioned, it silences people's voices because it's like that's what you're focused on. Mm-hmm. Why not focus on my story? Why not focus on what made me finally have the courage to speak up? Mm-hmm. Find out what made me keep it in.
Yeah.
Because that's not something that's easy to talk about. Mm-hmm. It's not.
It's not. But I also think, and someone in one of our groups had also said it too, and it's something I agree with, that women or men who falsely accuse people of being a sex offender should have to live out the sentence that sex offender lived.
I agree.
Mm-hmm.
Because then it'll put people more on, what's the word I'm looking for? Hold them accountable for what they're about to say about someone.
Because people get their lives thrown away for this. Think about all the things we just said in the interview that happens to sex offenders. So
we've had people who are sitting in jail. Mind you, jail's not long term. Mm-hmm. For what, 3 to 5 years sometimes.
And that's like the least of it.
That's the least of it. But 3 to 5 years waiting for a trial because they didn't commit the crime. Mm-hmm. How is that right?
Yeah.
So I think with the Me Too movement, I think people's voices should be heard. Yes. I think that nobody should try to silence them. Nobody should try to bash them saying, you want this, you want that.
Oh, you're coming out 10 years later.
Mm-hmm. I think we should try to understand why they're coming out 10 years later. What prevented them? What scared them? Mm-hmm. But then also hold them accountable that if this is not true and you make an allegation, you're ruining somebody's life at the same time. Mm-hmm. So it's about just being honest. Money shouldn't matter. Fame shouldn't matter. Mm-hmm. Trying to bring somebody down shouldn't matter. It should be
about healing yourself and
the person
who did this crime
is healing. Mm-hmm. And that's why I think I do like the Me Too movement. Mm-hmm.
Because one woman that happened to me that I don't have a voice, you're speaking for me even if I choose not to speak. Or you empowered me, now I want to go share my story, even if it was 10 years ago or 5 years ago. Well, thank you for coming, Franchesca.
Of course, anything for you, Marilyn. Anything